If you are a guest here, I'm so honored that you're with us. My name is Matthew Johnson. I'm the lead pastor, and we really are excited that you're here today. That said, today is going to be a different day. We have a really exciting announcement we're going to do here in a few minutes, and so this is not a normal week. So if you're a guest and someone's been inviting you for a while and you're coming to check it out, I apologize. It's not the normal service. Next week I will teach, but this week I'm glad you're here because you're going to learn a little bit about the history of the church, and you're going to learn about the future of our church. So I'm excited that you're here. Before I get into any of that, though, this week, just because of the schedule, we didn't do a lot of promo about our Connect groups, but I want to remind you that we are still taking sign-ups this week and next week for Connect groups. And I'll just tell you, I cannot stress enough how important Connect groups are. Even this past week, and I would say without any exaggeration, there is not a week goes by in our church where our Connect groups are not ministering to someone inside their own group. And this past week was no different. I can tell you, without telling you, I can tell you 3 different, very meaningful situations where the Connect group surrounded people in their groups that were going through a difficult time just this past week. And so I want to encourage you, if you have started coming to our church over however long, many years or even recently, you need to get involved in a Connect group. It's an opportunity to develop relationships and friendships, to have that encouragement you need, that support, that challenge that you need. And so if you have any questions about it, you can go back there, and Pastor Brandon's there with his team at the end of service, and they will answer any questions, and they'll find a group that meets your needs. All right, so today we have an exciting announcement. But before I do that, you're going to get a lot of that. Okay, so I do want to acknowledge something, and I almost did, and I kind of wrestled back and forth, but I want to because I just felt like maybe it's important to. For whatever reason, every single time that we say that we're going to announce something, 100% of the time, people start calling our staff or texting our staff, and they're asking if Mary and I are leaving. And we're not leaving, okay? But here's what I want to say. I'll just warn you, I'm not feeling well, so I'm going to get even more emotional today, okay? I want to just say something because I want to connect to your hearts. I was talking to my friend Tim, who's the pastor of Crossroads this week, and I said, hey, we got this weird thing that happens. Every time we're going to announce something, people ask if I'm leaving. I go, does that happen to you? And he goes, no. And he goes, you know why though, Matt? He said, I really think it's because, he goes, I'm the founding pastor of our church. I just don't think people think I'm going to leave. And I started to get my mind stirring that I think because I came from Detroit to here, that many people think that I might move on. So I just want to say something to you. Mary and I have absolutely no plans to ever leave. It's just not in our hearts. But more importantly than that, thank you, I appreciate that. But more importantly than that, Mary and I have no desire to leave. We love this community. This is where all 4 of our kids were born. We love it. This is our home. This is where my heart is. And I can't promise you that God won't ever lead me somewhere else. I don't know that. I didn't think I would leave Detroit, and I did. But I'm just saying, we have no desire. I'm not looking. I'm not open to anything right now unless God tells me. So I just want you to know, if we say that we're making an announcement, especially if I say it's a good announcement, it's not me leaving, okay? So, all right, so here's what we're going to do. In a moment, we are going to show you a video, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. With this announcement, I wanted each service to have the exact same experience. I wanted because you know how it is, maybe you don't know this, but with each service, it might come across a little bit differently. I knew I wanted to cover some of our history. I wanted to cover where we currently are. I wanted to talk about the future. And each service is different. So I asked our media department to put together like a mini documentary of our church. So about a 20-minute video explaining our history, where we currently are, and where we are going. And so we're going to show you that video as a way to announce the big announcement. Here's my request to you. Is if you would do me a favor and don't post anything on social media today until we release it as a church. Don't text any of your friends and tell them what the news is. Don't call anyone. On your way out today, as others are coming in, you know what they're going to ask you? So what's the big announcement? You know what you're going to say? Can't tell you, all right? And you're going to walk out. Give us the privilege, if you would, and allow them to have the same experience that you're about to have, and because it's very meaningful to us. And so, I'm just making sure I'm covering all my bases so I don't miss anything. So what's going to happen in just a second is all of our big screens are going to come down so that you can see the video that way. And I'm just saying that as a warning, our coffee shop venue, our nursing mother's room, and our parents' room, or family room upstairs, you will lose your feed for just a few seconds, and then it'll come back on. So don't freak out and come running down here, okay? So, all right, so the screens will come down, and then we'll show you this video.
In the beginning, God was at work on the earth. He created all we see, from the birds of the air to the fish in the sea, from the plants to animals, and he crowned his creation with humanity. God created us, people, and gave us the earth to dwell in, care for, and enjoy. And through it all, God's desire was always to dwell with man, and he did. And things were perfect, happy, and whole. But distrust and selfishness inflicted the heart of man. And in the ultimate betrayal, we turned our backs on God. But God didn't turn his back on us. He went to work enacting a plan to restore us back to him. And so he came down. He became one of us. And he worked out his plan of restoration through his Son, Jesus, healing the sick and loving the broken. God was at work in this world. When it came time for Jesus to leave, he promised he would still be here, still working to restore what once was. He gave us his Holy Spirit to fill, empower, and equip the people that he would call his own, his church. People who would work at bringing God's restoration to this world. So on continents, and nations, and cities, and villages all over this world, Christ is still at work. And we see that every day here in Lancaster, Ohio. Lancaster is a city steeped in history. Despite its small-town feel, boasts about 38,800 people from all walks of life. While we've been voted in the top 3 least racially diverse cities, Lancaster has a diversity all its own. Diversity economically, diversity in working class, diversity in its cultural heritage, with farmlands and factories, but also a community that celebrates the arts and music. But where there are people, there's brokenness. And despite all the great things about Lancaster, the city is not without her problems. Like many American landscapes, Lancaster continues to fight an ever-growing drug problem. The divorce rate in Fairfield County, in which Lancaster is the county seat, sits higher than the state average. And despite a skyline full of steeples, approximately 23,500 people claim no religious affiliation. That's almost 40% of the people of Lancaster who need brokenness restored. Who need to hear that God loves them and wants to be in a relationship with them. It's in this setting, with all its good and bad, that God placed Lancaster Community Church.
I think in order to understand our history, you have to look at both the good and the bad. And unfortunately for us, our current history begins in the bad. What I mean by that is our church has been around for over 16 years, but in the fall of 2010, our founding pastor and former pastor suddenly resigned. And with his resignation, created a lot of turmoil in our church. And it unfortunately split the church. Well over half of our people left fairly quickly in the process, and it was just such an emotionally charged time, which is understandable. No matter if you stayed or left, it was difficult. It was just hard. We had for about 10 or 11 weeks straight, the attendance every single week went down. We didn't know where the bottom was. Each week, less people meant less people that you were connected to. The elders made a decision that I believe God supernaturally blessed, and it launched our church on a trajectory that has led us to where we are today. And that decision was in the midst of the deepest time of turmoil and confusion and intensity, that we simply were going to honor God. And we were going to take the high road and just extend grace and love to people as best we were able. And I really believe that was a moment that because we honored God, He chose to bless us. And I remember actually the meeting really well. As the elders, we were talking about it. And I remember the conversation went to a point where we said, it's quite possible we don't survive this. It's quite possible that LCC will no longer be a church. Because we didn't know where the bottom was. It just every week was just kind of going less. But we just felt like we had a certain piece about it that said if that was God's desire for the church to no longer be, then we were going to honor him until that last day. We were just trying to really survive and just kind of live for that upcoming week. And as we were planning on, how do you do church, we came to the simple conclusion, and this was the elders and the staff that was there, is that we were going to do two things. Keep it really simple. We were going to love God and we were going to love people. And so that's what we focused on. We focused on loving God through really teaching solid, the Bible, teaching our people how to worship better, discipling people. But then we also created an environment where we said we're just going to love on people. Anyone that comes is welcomed, and we were going to help them through whatever season of life. And it was just such a powerful thing. The more we loved God and the more we loved people, the more people he gave us to love. Every single week for 2 years, the attendance was like higher than the week before. And since that time, we've never had a year where we've averaged less attendance than the year before. But the reason I just use that number is each one of those people, those numbers were people who came, and they weren't just people, they were stories and they were situations of life. And like for me in my own heart and for our staff, if you were to get them in here and ask them about it, what we would tell you is not numbers, we would tell you stories.
Before LCC, we were heading down a path that would have led to complete destruction of our family. We have learned not only that God must come first, but how to make him first. We no longer feel stuck in our marriage, and we're excited about the future as a family. Because of LCC, we found a peace that we've never known before.
We would tell you the marriages that were reconciled, and we would tell you the families that were brought back together.
If I didn't have LCC, my life would be out of control. I didn't listen to anyone, and I did whatever I wanted, even when it was wrong. I was mean, rude, and wild. My life was dark, and I hated it and myself. I thank God all the time for LCC. My attitude and my demeanor has changed, and my eyes have been opened to the beauty and the truth that I am very blessed. LCC was my game changer.
We would talk about generational curses that were broken, and we would talk about how the children are being discipled and memorizing scriptures, and how the youth are coming to church even though their parents weren't, and now their parents are coming because they were coming to church.
6 years ago, my brother Brett brought my siblings and I to the Wednesday night ministries at LCC. It honestly just changed our life in ways that I can't even explain. Before we came to LCC, my family was really just heading down a path that we probably shouldn't have been on. And I'm so grateful for the people at LCC, the youth ministry, and just all the people who have really just reached out to us. When I take a step back to really observe everything that God has done in my life through LCC and how he's used this church to change my life, I'm in absolute awe of his unrelenting love and desire to be in relationship with us.
If I didn't have LCC, I would be still lost in life, wondering, why am I here and what is my purpose? LCC has led me to find out who I am, my purpose in life, and helps me to know Christ better. I have learned so much from the Bible, and I've become connected to people just like me. At LCC, I have found a family of my own that loves me for who I am as a single mother. They've been so supportive of Cambria and I and all the struggles that we've gone through, and I could not ask for a better family.
About 4 years ago, our family experienced the loss of a child, and that was the time when I felt that I started to understand what the body of Christ was all about.
we were supported, we were loved on, we were checked on, we were prayed for. It really, really, really was an eye-opener to us on exactly what the body of Christ should look like.
We wouldn't have been able to survive the experience of losing a child.
We learned so much as far as exactly what the love of Christ should look like and exactly how we should be a part of that. Without LCC, we wouldn't have experienced that. It gave us an overwhelming sense of peace, and it helped us get through all of it.
So every single week as people kept coming, it's just one of the most amazing and humbling things to be a part of. And once God brought that momentum, with it came healing. We knew we had a calling, and our calling was to change Lancaster. Things started to change, and we had a lot of excitement, a lot of momentum, and God was just adding to our church every single week. There's a passage in Acts chapter 2 where it talks about Peter gives this incredible message and people are saved, and it goes on just to describe the early church, and it just says, and the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. In many ways, that's what our church felt like. It's just people kept coming, and it was so exciting. It was exciting to see the sanctuary full. It was exciting to get to meet new people. But it quickly became clear to us that it was also leading us toward a problem. And the problem was we were going to run out of space.
We're standing actually in the last room that we've not remodeled. They brought me in one day and started talking about maybe utilizing it as a media suite. And I was kind of excited because it was our own space or whatever, but the room really is weird. And I even was going to put my desk back in the little corner thing. It's kind of an awkward room. It's got poles in the middle of it. The elevator mechanical room is right there. The floor's unlevel in here. There's a concrete slab that sticks up 4 inches off the ground. It's not really a good room to really reuse. The fact that this is the only room that we've not remodeled really is a testimony to the fact that we've utilized the building to its capacity.
In the past 3 years, the children's ministry has tripled. So it's exciting, but it also creates a problem for us because when we break into small groups, we have hundreds of kids and we just don't have the room for that. So we get 30 or 40 adults in here, the teachers and the volunteers, and then you have 100 kids in here. That's a lot of people in a small space. So when God gives us more kids, we get to that critical point of what do we do now? Where are we going to put all these kids and these adults? So it's exciting, but it's scary.
Movement started out meeting in this room, but years ago we outgrew this room. So currently we meet in the sanctuary where we really don't have any dedicated space for youth ministry. The only true dedicated space we have is a small closet off of the front of the sanctuary, which we share with the music department.
There's a lot of hurting people that come in and they don't have any relationships at all, and so for them to begin that process of starting to make true relationships, true friends, healthy friendships, if they had a place for connection, for that to even start, then that would be ideal. That would be great.
One of the ways that we bring wholeness is we give classroom opportunities. I believe that care also comes in relationship, but sometimes people need some entry steps in what to do. They want to get out of debt. They want to have a better marriage. They want to improve in their new Christian life. They just don't know how to do it. So you just got to give them some handles how to do that. I've got about a whole list of things that I wanted as classes, and I'm having to do turning down more opportunities for a potential class than I have classrooms for.
We have maximized this space. Like there's nothing else we can do here. And so that's when we started the process of looking outside of the walls of this current building. And we really did look at any property in town that was even a possibility, any building that was vacant that might give us a square footage that we need. We really wanted to stay inside the city. Here, I'll show you a building. This is one of the ones that we looked at. And I still remember when Joe and I came up to look at the building up here. It's like 250,000 square feet, something like that. And we were both driving our trucks. And we pulled up here and the doors to the building were open, and so we just pulled right in, and it was crazy. I mean, our trucks they just absolutely absorbed our trucks. And so these are the two doors. You just drove right in, and it's just huge open space here and over there, and it's a lot of storage. when it all came down to it, it was just too big and it would have not been cost effective and not enough parking. So this building was one that I absolutely had my heart set on. I remember the first time I came and actually physically stepped into the building. They had an auction, and I walked in, and I remember looking to the left, and it was just huge. And I looked, I was like, man, this building's, gigantic. And then I turned and looked to the right, and I thought, man, it's just as big that way. And I mean, just loved it. I really had my heart set on it, prayed about it, had other people in the church praying about it. But it just, it never worked out. The owner really wasn't in a position that he had to sell or wanted to sell, and so they didn't really negotiate with us. And when Tractor Supply came in, that kind of became official for us that we weren't in the running anymore for the building. And so one day, our real estate agent called me, Jeff Sauer, and he said, have you considered, and he named this location. And I was like, well, yeah, that'd be awesome, but there's a current business in there. And so he called me back like less than a week later, and he said, man, I got good news. They're actually gonna put it on the market this upcoming year, which was really cool because it gave us a head start. Like, they hadn't officially done it yet, but it gave us a head start to try to secure financing. And God did like all these miracles to make this happen, that this spot that we would have never imagined could be a possibility, he opened up to give to us. And this building, in my opinion, is just the absolute perfect building. It is the ideal location, the size of the building. We would also be purchasing another outbuilding that had businesses currently leasing from it. And when it was all said and done, the income that we would gain from the leases would overall cover the entire mortgage payment for the purchase of the building. So in essence, it was God gave us this perfect location, perfect building for absolute free. And the only challenge to us was, would we raise the money to remodel it? And I mean, you just can't look at that and see anything but the move of God in that situation. And so, for us, we're super excited. We were able to close on the deal. We were able to get the building. And what this showed me, the entire process, as we went through and looked at all these other buildings, and our hopes were up and they were down, and throughout this whole process, what it showed us was that God is absolutely faithful. I mean, he gave us the ideal, but then here's the challenge. And this is really where it comes to with us, is God has shown that he is faithful. Now he's challenging us. Will we be faithful? Are we willing to take that next step forward as a church and raise the funds to remodel it so that we can impact the city that we're called to impact? LCC, are you ready to see our new home?